Well, I want to welcome to the stage Ali Haeri from MNTN Streaming TV. We're going to hear about what you know and don't know about advertising. And he might just tell you at the end what it's like to work with Ryan Reynolds, if you really want to know.
Thanks. All right. You know, the interesting thing about going on at 4:45 is you guys really care about TV advertising if you're here at the end of the day. So it's great to see you all here. That's me. Digging in, what we're going to talk about today is, I'm going to serve as a sort of person to kind of give you all the insights on what it takes to advertise on streaming TV today. I suspect that most of you in this room already are probably familiar with connected television, but I want to kind of explain connected television through the lens of, an e-commerce company, how you could kind of take advantage of connected TV. And I myself am a marketer, and I spent several years working as a head of marketing for an e-commerce company, so I could certainly appreciate the grind of working in e-commerce. And again, what we're going to talk about today is specifically how e-commerce can thrive on connected television. And the first really important point to make, and we'll be kind of coming back to this constantly throughout this presentation, is that CTV is a performance marketing channel. Now, again, that's really important for this audience specifically, because as e-commerce folks, you really tap into all of the major performance marketing channels, I'm certain. And so something that may not be intuitively obvious is the fact that connected television can function like a performance marketing channel. And we'll talk about exactly why. And so first, we'll talk about why it's going to be the third pillar of your performance marketing strategy alongside paid search and paid social. Then we'll talk about how to find your audience. This is a really important aspect of this. As an e-commerce company, you're probably looking to reach your existing buyers or prospective buyers, and there's a lot of really neat capabilities in terms of audience targeting on connected television, so we'll talk about that. And then measurement. Any performance marketing channel you use, measurement is incredibly important, and some of the e-commerce marketers that I've met before, they're effectively data scientists with the volume of data that they're analyzing and the decisions that they're making based off of that. And so we'll talk about how CTV can be measured like a performance marketing channel. And then finally, and most importantly, and I think this is a really valuable thing too, is the fact that you can take your existing sensibility around other performance marketing channels and apply that. You don't need a unique skill set to do streaming TV advertising. If you're doing advertising on, say, social media, you likely already have the skill set to immediately do CTV advertising. So just to kind of set the table first as we dig in, something really interesting happened last July. And what happened, as Nielsen sort of reported, was that for the first time, CTV beat out linear TV or broadcast TV in terms of consumption. That meant more people were streaming television than they were watching it through a more traditional means. Now, that being said, CTV only accounts for 18% of video ad dollars. If you're going to group it with other types of video advertising, it only represents 18% of it. Now, the huge opportunity here for everybody in the room is the fact that 70% of viewers are not accessible by linear TV. And again, when I say linear TV, I'm talking about broadcast TV, the traditional sort of TV as you know it. 70% of viewers are not accessible on linear TV. And you got to think about this too. Depending on who your target audience is as an e-commerce brand, this may be even more exaggerated than 70%. I know some folks who work in really hot D2C brands that have a very sort of young profile of their target demographic. And it's going to be even more sort of drastic, where their core demographic is just not going to be found with linear TV advertising. And so advertisers who aren't on connected television are already being left behind because of that. And so CTV is becoming really robust for a variety of reasons. And I suspect everybody in this room is streaming television, mostly, if not entirely, at this point. So a lot of this may seem intuitively obvious to you. But people are cutting the cord. That transition from linear TV to streaming TV has been pretty seismic. Another thing that's been huge development in the industry, and it's timely because Disney just reported their earnings this afternoon, is Netflix and Disney have both launched ad-supported tiers of the two absolute biggest streaming platforms that exist. Now, if you're a marketer, you should look at that opportunistically because that represents a huge, huge, huge amount of inventory that you can seize to get your message out there in a really targeted way. And so again, TV is a performance marketing channel. And so when you think of linear TV advertising, you're thinking about all of the shortcomings of linear TV advertising. I suspect there are people in this room who at some point in time had considered doing traditional TV advertising for your brand, but for a variety of reasons you decided that it wasn't for you. Probably most commonly it's because it was so expensive. But other reasons may be the lack of targeting capabilities. When you're running campaigns on linear TV, you're targeting based off of network or show. And there's just inherent waste there. When you think about what the sort of viewership habits are of your target audience, there's no way that you're neatly going to be able to find exactly where your target audience is at all times and be able to target them accordingly. I'm a great example of this. Full disclosure, I watched The Real Housewives, all of them. And someone who's trying to reach me with some sort of stereotypically kind of male product, they're likely not buying ads on Bravo just to show me that advertisement. And so that's the inherent shortcoming of something like linear TV advertising. Now, the other shortcoming also is related to measurability. If you've run traditional TV advertisements before, you're probably used to what it takes to actually measure the success of these campaigns, and all of it is abstract. It's all really abstract. You could do a spike analysis, where within a 15-minute window or some other defined window of your ad being broadcast, you measure your website traffic, and all this stuff is like pretty abstract. Connected TV neatly sort of addresses all of these problems and the reason for this is it's just programmatic advertising. So for those of you that are familiar with programmatic, Connected TV is the same, just a different ad unit. And so precision audience targeting, this is where your familiarity with social media advertising becomes really useful. So targeting by title, company, affinity, interest, whatever it may be, that carries over into connected television advertising as well. And on the backside of it, measurement, being able to understand the actual impact of your campaigns. And we'll talk about this throughout this presentation, but being able to have a report that shows you, a site visit report and a conversion report down to the order ID level, which I think is important for e-commerce marketers. Being able to attribute your TV campaign to that is very important. And so specifically for retail and e-commerce, CTV is absolutely going to be something that, if you're not doing it already, is certainly going to be part of your advertising strategy. Again, we kind of consider it as like the third pillar next to search and social. It's certainly a memorable ad format. And it also allows you to kind of align all of your best practices with regards to how you put your creative together, the messaging you deploy, everything you do as a performance marketer to ensure the effectiveness of your campaigns, all on the largest screen in the house. So consider the user experience when you're constructing these campaigns for connected TV. And what I mean here is, this is an area where you can differentiate CTV from paid search and paid social in that, with social, the ad unit is passive. Someone is there to consume the social media network's content, and it's interrupted with your social media advertising. Search, it has real estate on the search results page, certainly, but again, people can either blow past those results or interact with them. But again, that user experience is meant to mimic an organic search result. In the case of connected TV, it's quite different. We're talking about unskippable ads on a television. And when I say unskippable, people really don't skip these things. The average viewability, or completion rate, I should say, of connected TV ads is over 98%. That's not something that's unique to Mountain. That's just generally with connected TV. It's just people don't they're not so turned off by advertising that they'll abort the program that they're watching just to avoid an ad. People watch the ads on CTV, and it encompasses the entire television too. So certainly it enables a more memorable TV experience. Now, again, I talked about earlier, reaching audience is very important when it comes to e-commerce advertising, or really any type of advertising, but I feel like e-commerce has some pretty unique audience targeting needs in this case. We pulled some data with regards to the kind of lift that we see people get as opposed to running a display-only strategy. And predictably, you're getting an increase in conversions and also a much lower cost per acquisition in this case. Now, something that a lot of the marketers in the room are familiar with doing on other performance marketing channels is retargeting. And the point here, folks, is just like it's indistinguishable from a performance standpoint from other performance marketing channels that you're using, including retargeting. And this is one of those areas where e-commerce stands to benefit, especially compared to other sort of sectors, because in this case, you could do retargeting in just the classic way that you do on other digital channels, which is site-based retargeting. So with a platform like MNTN, you put a pixel on a website, and those visitors to your website are going to be retargeted with ads on TV after they have visited your website. This is something that we do. If you go to MNTN's website, you're going to see Ryan Reynolds on your TV a day later because we're retargeting you on television. But also specific to e-commerce, you can also retarget based off of e-commerce signals. So retarget based off of cart size, retarget based off of abandoned carts, previous purchases, value of product viewed. That's a really interesting way to retarget someone who's been browsing a store based off of the value of the products that they're actually viewing. If they're looking at particularly expensive products versus inexpensive products, you can hinge your targeting criteria based off of signals like this. Now, that's site-based retargeting. Then you also have this concept of list-based retargeting, which I suspect a lot of you are already doing as well. And so if with your CRM data, you can also do some really interesting retargeting. So we see a lot of our e-commerce customers, what they do is they'll take their loyalty program members, load that into the platform, and run campaigns dedicated to them. This kind of brings me to a bit of a tangent, which is, what do you do as a marketer when you have this new capability of targeting for this well-established medium of TV advertising? As I was talking about before, with linear TV advertising, we're so used to the abstract targeting of linear TV, the fact that you're showing an ad to everyone who's watching a network or everyone who's watching a certain show. The ads need to be very broad in appeal and messaging. And it's really hard in 30 seconds to just try to like check all the boxes for all the different types of people that are going to see your ad. Now in this case, you can just create ads for each one of these individual target audiences. So in this use case of using a loyalty program list as the basis for your TV campaign, you could create creative, you could create a TV commercial that is just shown to your loyalty program audience. Now think about that. That really unlocks a lot of new creativity that you may not have thought about before, because now you don't need to explain what your product or service is to this audience, because they're obviously familiar with it. They're part of your loyalty program. And so you can just focus on delivering a message to an audience that's already familiar with, again, your brand and your product or service. Another consideration here is related to cross-device. Something that e-commerce marketers are certainly doing is creating a sophisticated marketing or advertising strategy where users are touched across a wide variety of touch points. And connected TV is no different. This can fit into your multi-channel strategy. What we're noticing is, in the case of MNTN, we have a product feature called MNTN Multi-Touch. It's pretty interesting. It basically complements your television commercial with display advertising. So rather than just doing like a display-only campaign and not getting great results out of it, instead what happens with multi-touch is your TV ad is served, and then after that, that person who was served a TV ad is now going to be served display ads that are complementary to the TV campaign as they browse the web. And we notice a 10x increase in performance when people are using mounting multi-touch. Because again, when you think about the user experience after they've seen the ad, all we care about is ad recall. And certainly you're going to get better ad recall in a scenario in which that message is continued on other channels. And so it's another kind of consideration back to the point about user experience. It's really kind of important to think about what that user's interaction with your brand is going to look like. It's already immensely powerful to run ads on TV. It's been the most sort of prestigious type of advertising that we've had available to us as marketers for a very long time now. But using that to kind of kick off the experience of the whole user journey, I mean, that's really powerful too. And again, having this complementary set of advertisements on other channels that are sort of triggered by the initial impression from TV, that really puts your brand in a really nice spot. Now talking about data for a second, I kind of teased this a moment ago, but really the fascinating thing here is the fact that TV advertising can be measured with the same fidelity that you measure the success of your search and social campaigns. And so in the case of Mountain, we have a real-time reporting dashboard that you can log into, just like you would with your Google Ads account, for example, and see just like a running check on impressions served, but more importantly, site visits and conversions, as I mentioned, down to the order ID level. Now, a common question is always related to, well, how do you know? You serve an ad to someone in their household. How do you know that that person is the one that's actually like making it onto the website? I'm happy you asked. So the way that works is essentially it's household-based targeting. In the case of Mountain, we have a device graph. It actually carries over half of the households in the United States inside this very, very large device graph. And when an ad is served into a household, since you have a pixel running on your website, like you do with any of your other digital channels, Mountain is able to see all of the visitors that make it to your website. And it evaluates each visitor that comes in. Was an ad served to this household previously or not? Now, there's also some built-in accountability into a system like this as well. So suppose the ad was served, the TV ad was served, and someone on their journey to your website clicked a search ad or a social ad, and then they wound up on your website. Mountain's Pixel would recognize that. They would recognize that a TV ad was served to this user, but their most recent click into this website was by way of another digital channel, and therefore it would defer credit to that other channel. It wouldn't take credit for that visit that came into the website. And so it's a pretty important detail when it comes to attribution and kind of understanding the channels that are actually driving the real action for your website. The last point that I'll make related to this, and I'm beating a dead horse here with regards to how performance marketing channels are all the same. And in this case, Mountain's channel of performance TV is similar to the other ones, which is objective-based advertising. Most advertising channels now prefer that you indicate an objective-based goal. Google doesn't really want you to do a manual cost per click bid anymore. They really just want you to come in and indicate a return on ad spend goal or a cost per acquisition goal. It's the same here, where you're going to come into the platform and indicate what are you trying to actually achieve from a cost per acquisition standpoint or a target return on ad spend standpoint. And then the platform just kind of works behind the scenes towards helping you achieve your goal. Back to the point about audiences. One thing that we've observed from e-commerce advertisers that run on the platform is what they do with their audience data. It's kind of something important to consider as well. A lot of e-commerce advertisers, when I think of the audience data targeting that's available in the platform, it's it's sort of e-commerce advertisers, retail advertisers are sort of the most well-positioned to take advantage of all the audience segments that exist in any major digital advertising platform right now. Just kind of considering, again, affinity, in-market based audiences, it really is kind of geared towards e-commerce. And so, what's important is being able to, on the back end of a campaign, analyze the performance of your campaigns by audience segment. And what we've sort of seen our advertisers do is take those findings of the performance by different audience segments and use that to influence their decision making with regards to audiences that they're using on other channels. And another thing that we also see from like a testing standpoint is advertisers run A/B tests. So a larger advertiser that is still doing linear TV advertising, what they'll do is they'll run A/B tests with variations of their creative on streaming television, run that for a certain amount of time until they see some statistical significance, and choose the winner of that A/B test as the version of the ad that they'll run with their much more expensive linear TV buy. We had an advertiser do that with Super Bowl creative, where they ran it for a couple of weeks on the platform to determine precisely which variation and messaging of their ad they wanted to run in their Super Bowl campaign. So there's a lot of insights that you could kind of glean from running your campaign on a platform, and therefore sort of not just improve your connected TV advertising campaign, but also improve your campaigns on other channels as well. And then from like a data standpoint, it's kind of the same point. How are you kind of mobilizing this data to improve your campaigns on other channels? Some other observations that we've seen from e-commerce marketers is on the social front, we've seen marketers take their CTV asset and use that with video ad units on other social media marketing platforms. They've seen success in that case. And also just kind of, again, coordinating seasonally. You know, if your TV creative is going to follow a certain aesthetic or message, making sure that your other channels are sort of aligned from a look and feel standpoint as well. That really creates that full immersion for your prospect that you're really looking for, and that's quite important. Now, different channels have different strengths, and this is a good time to kind of say, I am by no means talking anyone out of doing search or social advertising. That is not the point of any of this. Really, the point here is that you have like a third viable channel alongside search and social. Now, talking about search for a second, it's an important tool. I suspect everybody here is using search in some manner already. But when you're specifically thinking about how and when you deploy search, really the most obvious sort of characteristic of search advertising is that it is a channel for capturing existing demand. If you are an e-commerce company that is in an entirely new product category, search advertising is going to be a rough go for you because people don't know to search for a category that they don't know exists. So paid search works really well in instances where it's a well-established product category and you have a compelling message to tell in that case. Now, in this case, connected TV has the same advantage that social media advertising has, which is floating to someone a new product or, again, a new product category that they don't know exists. I always think back to during lockdown and COVID, I would see this ad for this thing on Instagram where it was like something you put on your keychain, and it's got like a loop and a prong on it, so you could like open doors and like press elevator buttons with it. The fact that I don't know the name of this product tells you that this is perfect for social media advertising and not for search advertising. I would not know how to search for that product in a search engine. But it's products like that that really do well on social media advertising. And again, that would play really well on streaming TV advertising, especially because it's timely. You could deploy a streaming TV advertising campaign within hours. You don't need to work through an agency and like a TV network. And so all those advantages that you have of social advertising, and specifically those instances where social advertising makes more sense than search advertising, those same benefits can be realized on connected television as well. And so to that point, CTV generates new demand in that same manner that we just kind of talked about here. It gets you an incremental audience. to anyone who will benefit from your service. Again, from an audience targeting standpoint, you can target both first and third-party data. Coordinating that together is going to be pretty impactful for your brand. Also, there's no learning curve. Again, if you have ever launched a social media advertising campaign before, sequentially, it's the same process to actually launch a campaign. It's really choosing your audience, uploading the creative, and setting what your budget and objective is for your campaign, and you're advertising on television. It's pretty interesting. So, winding this down a little bit, what you're going to need to succeed. So suppose you've been considering advertising on streaming TV for some time now. People have been telling you about it. Or every publication that you read is talking about CTV. What are the considerations for you as you're analyzing all these different vendors that do it? First is you're going to want to find a platform that tracks visits and conversions. If they don't, or they're commingling their inventory with linear TV inventory, which some of them do, you're kind of back to that same situation that linear TV advertisers are in that you're working with something that's hard to measure and hard to track. Again, as e-commerce marketers, you moonlight as a data scientist, and you need a channel that is providing reliable, accurate, measurable data. And so you're going to need a platform that gets you that sort of that fidelity of information. Audience targeting, you're going to want to scrutinize the audience targeting capabilities of a CTV platform. The more audience segments that are available, the better. Specifically, you're going to want some sort of platform that has data integrations with a lot of different audience data providers. And so when I think of e-commerce, I'm thinking of Experian, Visa, MasterCard data, and Axiom data. These are like the data providers you're likely using on other platforms that carry a lot of consumer behavior data that could be great as the basis for targeting in e-com campaigns. And you're going to similarly want to choose a TV platform that also allows you to target in that same manner. Now, the next point is a really important one. This is a sobering reality of advertising on streaming TV, which is the creative, the commercials that you're running on TV, they need to be refreshed frequently, and more frequently than you would if you're doing linear TV advertising. And so basically there's this concept of ad fatigue. And if you're streaming television right now, you've probably experienced this before, where every commercial break, you just keep seeing the same ad for the same brand over and over again. And no one wants that. The consumer doesn't want that because it's irritating. The brand doesn't want that because they don't want to irritate the consumer. And so you're going to want to be sensitive to the capabilities of that platform to basically restrict this sort of thing from happening. So be sensitive to ad fatigue. And as a marketer, you need to make sure that you can have a pipeline of creative on an ongoing basis that you can create to keep refreshing it. The data that we've analyzed on our platform basically shows us that at worst, you want to refresh that creative on a quarterly basis. At best, I'd say on a monthly basis. And there's hacks to being able to do this. It may sound overwhelming to kind of deliver a new TV commercial on a monthly basis, but it's a lot more easier than you think. It could be as simple as repurposing social video assets and re-encoding it to meet CTV specs and just running that. For a lot of e-commerce advertisers, what we've seen work really well is what we call UGC ads, where they have product testimonials just shot on telephones from their customers, talking about how much they love the product. That could be edited in a really slick way, and that could be your ad. You can run a 30-second ad of a person just shooting on their phone how much they love your product. And again, with really good editing, that could be your TV ad. And we've seen a lot of success there. That's a relatively easy and very affordable way to create a TV commercial. And you could turn that over pretty quickly. Finally, a platform with access to premium inventory. This is a bit of a point for the ad tech nerds in the room. Some of you may say, hey, I have access to a DSP, or I use an agency that uses something like the Trade Desk, so they could just buy CTV for me. That's true. That's not untrue. I'm not going to say that that's false. But the important consideration is that CTV inventory is very expensive. It's very expensive. It's far more finite than, say, display advertising inventory. And so if you're buying CTV inventory on the open market, it's going to be very expensive for you. And you're likely not going to get the volume that you need to really drive some real performance. And so, you know, a platform like MNTN really works out nicely in this case because we have buying power. We represent all of these advertisers on a very large scale, and we negotiate directly with publishers, and we have integrations directly into the SSPs. So, you know, it's going to be far more affordable to run on a platform like this. But certainly, if you have access to a DSP, you can run these campaigns yourself. Now, something that I already mentioned, and I won't belabor here again, is just taking your existing performance marketing sensibilities and applying that here. Another sort of analog for this is search advertising. If you're someone who's done a lot of search advertising, there's a lot of skills and sensibilities from being able to do search advertising that can carry over to building really successful performance TV campaigns. Things like how you think about the keywords that you're targeting, that could be carried over into the audiences that you choose for campaigns. The way you architect your account structure, you're probably aligning campaigns and ad groups against different stages of the marketing funnel. You could do that same thing in this case as well. So just another call out that you already have the skills it takes to succeed doing this. And I mentioned this, so I'll kind of blow through this really quickly, but what does it take to actually run a campaign on streaming TV? It's a lot easier than you probably think. You identify the key details related to the campaign. Again, on a platform like MNTN, this is just kind of objective-based. So you really just kind of show up with, you know, what your goal type is, cost per acquisition or return on ad spend, which you likely know from your analysis of all the other channels that you're running on, what your budget is going to be, and your flight dates. We prefer, as a performance marketing channel, to run the campaigns indefinitely, evergreen campaigns. In the same way that we don't pause our Google Ads campaigns with regularity, they're always on. We recommend people do the same. But if you have like a flighted seasonal campaign, you certainly can indicate that as well. Next is choosing your audience. And in this case, you could be as broad or specific as you like. These audiences get very, very specific. I was speaking at a travel conference, digital travel conference a couple of weeks ago, and some of the audience segments I was sharing for the travel industry were people who rent cars in the fall, people who travel just to see NBA games, or affluent donors, charitable travelers. Those are the audience segment. It's people who donate a lot of money but also travel. So if you specifically need that extra wrinkle of someone who travels but is also donating a lot of money, I mean, that's an audience segment too. And so if you've had exposure to programmatic advertising, you've probably seen it before. The audience segments can get incredibly granular. And no matter what it is that you do, there's likely audience segments that are tailored specifically to your industry and use case. Some of the ones that I recently have seen kind of deployed for the e-commerce space has been related to like subscription boxes. There's a lot of audience segments dedicated to people who have like a demonstrated interest in subscribing to subscription boxes. There's tons of audience segments related to seasonality. So anything you could think of, there's really going to be an audience segment that goes with it. And finally, choosing your creative, uploading a creative that's your TV commercial. In this case, you just upload it into the platform, and within a couple hours, your TV campaign is running and collecting data and sending traffic over to your website. So to conclude here, the first point here, again, is that this is a performance marketing channel. Streaming TV is a performance marketing channel that's going to help you get your message in front of your target audience. Next is the measurability of it. One thing that I didn't mention is I suspect a lot of you probably have a dependency on a tool like Google Analytics, it's Utah, so maybe you use Domo or Tableau for your data analysis. with a platform like Mountain, the data automatically gets fed into GA with UTM parameters. So you could just see your source medium of the TV campaign sitting alongside your paid search and paid social campaigns. Or if you just want it to be portable, you want to just export all of your campaign metrics to your data analysis tool of choice, you could certainly do that as well. So there's a ton of data available to you. In the case of Mountain, if we collect it, you can analyze it, and you can export it out of the platform through a reporting API and just get it in real time in whatever tool that you're using. And finally, the really important point of you already have the skill set to do TV advertising. This is not a new skill with a big learning curve that you need to pick up. The metrics are consistent with all of the metrics that you're used to analyzing on other platforms. Again, the construction of a campaign, the components of it are consistent with all the other channels that you're using as well. That's all I got. Do you want to do questions or any questions? Yes?
I can, sure. Let's just see you've heard.
I have a lot of Here you go. Thank you so much. Had a quick question about, so we've seen a lot of success using remnant ads in linear TV.
Nice.
And every single time, and then like we're spending 6 figures a week on TikTok and 6 figures a week on Facebook, and those all have positive ROI. Never have been able to make CTV work.
Yeah.
And we've gone through like the different offerings, like whether it's through Tubi or through other things like that. So I was just wondering, in terms of like the different offerings that are available in CTV, both like from a Mountain perspective and just in general, like is it like, are you restricting yourself too much sometimes when linear TV seems to work really well, and you can tell, right, because of like the spikes that you were talking about. So yeah, how do you go about like not seeing something when you know other channels are working really well for you, and then why is CTV always such a tough nut to crack?
Yeah, that's a great question. So one of the first things that we notice from advertisers that kind of come to us with that same sort of situation is the inventory that they were using was just either too constrained. And so in the example of like Tubi, for example, like we have Tubi as part of Mountain's inventory, but we also have 150 other premium networks that we advertise on. This is like the fundamental difference between like linear, which is in linear, you're choosing a precise network to target against, and you're banking on the performance of that audience having high overlap with who you're targeting. In the case of something like Mountain, any other sort of like programmatic offering that you may use, you're not constrained to a single network. Really, what a platform like this does is it follows your target user no matter what it is that they're watching. And so they may be streaming something directly inside the Tubi app, or they may be streaming ESPN or Peacock. And what's going to happen is these audiences, the media buying technology that underpins all of this, is going to analyze the conversions that happen on your website. So there's a conversion pixel that's monitoring all the conversions that's happening, and it's using that data to drive the media buying that's happening on the front end. So all of the bidding and the auctions are influenced by that. So I don't know how you were necessarily buying CTV in the past, but I suspect if you were doing a direct buy through a FAST platform, free ad-supported TV platform, it may not have had all the inputs to influence buying performant inventory, or actually bidding on users that have a high likelihood of converting. And this is fundamentally what like Google ads or Facebook ads is doing. They're profiling all the users on your website using the pixel that you've embedded, and they're using that to influence which auctions to bid on. So.
Yep, over here and back there. We'll start here, and then I'll come to you afterwards.
I'm curious, just the cost of advertising, and do you suggest ever kind of a trial period, a test where you'd go in for, I don't know, a month or whatever that is, and how much we should expect to spend on something like that?
It's great timing. We just concluded a really thorough analysis of all the data on our platform over the past couple of years, and we finally found precisely what that amount of time looks like where you actually start hitting your stride as an advertiser. And it's around the sort of, so you're going to see increasing performance continuously until around 75 days, and then you're just going to get sustained performance. The caveat there is that you're refreshing your creative on an ongoing basis. If you just keep running the same creative, you're going to start seeing decayed performance at that point. But really, that's also like the #1 mistake the TV advertisers make too, is just getting a little too nervous and just kind of yanking the campaign after like 2 weeks. Like any other performance marketing channel, there's a learning period for the media buying technology. And you can kneecap that if you turn off the campaign too quickly. And so I'd say absolutely at a minimum, not just Mountain, any other platform that you're using, you'd want to give it at least, say, 45 days to really kind of get enough volume going. That's the other kind of consideration here too, is the fact that you need volume. Like display advertising, it's overabundant, the volume of it, so you could get your findings and optimizations relatively quickly because there's just so much inventory. With connected television, you need to give it a little bit more lead time. In terms of budgets, we always kind of recommend people to commit to at least $25,000 a month if you really want to see some real action happen. Again, with that sort of date range that we've talked about. Though right now, we also have SMB advertisers that are spending about $5,000 a month on the platform. In those instances, they're not prioritizing conversions, but they're prioritizing site traffic. And it could be a driver of like a really sort of measurable amount of site traffic, even at that budget level.
Thank you.
This has been very informative for me, so this is awesome. Thank you. I just had, as somebody who doesn't watch linear TV and solely watches streaming, I've noticed in the past, I don't know, 6 months or so, a lot of the CTV ads have had QR codes on them. One, I wanted to know, is that a best practice that you recommend? And B, or two, what would you recommend be the destination? As an e-com guy, I'm wondering what part of the website should I be sending them to using that QR code?
Great question. I think Coinbase basically got everyone in that frame of mind of should I have a QR code in my ad? Basically, yes, we're observing a lot of people are doing the QR code thing. So there's two ways to look at this, and it's sort of an all of the above kind of approach. With the cross-device tracking, you can rest assured that if someone sees your ad and then they visit your website, you're going to be able to tell if it was connected back to the ad or not. So just purely from an attribution standpoint, you're kind of covered with a platform like this to know that the ad led to a site visit. When the QR code makes specific sense, though, is when you want to influence precisely where they land on the website. And so if you have like an offer that's unique to that TV campaign, if you have a specific campaign of any sort, that's where the QR code is specifically going to land them. You can append that with UTM tags as well. So we see advertisers who are doing that. Again, they're kind of linking that to seasonal promotions, bespoke marketing activations, and also just specific like sign-up campaigns, where they could just take someone straight to the sign-up page on a website.
No, it's okay. If you feel like you can project, you don't need the microphone.
I feel like I'm on like Jerry Springer.
We've been using Mountain. We're balanced in nature. We love Mountain.
This is not. He
didn't stage this. I'm just saying that.
This is not a plant. I'm so good to hear.
Yeah, we've really enjoyed it, and I wanted to ask you, kind of the wheels are spinning with CTV. What is Mountain doing to? Because I know CTV ads, especially on Hulu, watching Hulu, they're interactive. You can click a button and it creates an account for their website. Because a lot of these platforms, whether it's Hulu, Pluto TV, you have to sign up. You get all the information, all the customers' information. What can Mountain do to, or is you working towards these interactive ads to where they can click a button and create an account?
So, yeah, thank you for your nice words too. But there's innovations happening, but there's also constraints. And I want to talk about the constraints, which is the publishers need to standardize among themselves to be able to really pioneer new ad units. The reason why you see that with Hulu is they're a walled garden. So they control their own ad units for just their own ad experience. So we'd need to see, since Mountain is spanning across all of this different publisher inventory, we'd need to see some sort of consensus across these publishers to help in pioneering that. That being said, Mountain is, I'm trying to think of like the most diplomatic and safest way to kind of tease some of these innovations, but I'll say Mountain later this year is unveiling some specific ad unit or ad features that basically enable one-to-one TV advertising specifically for e-commerce brands. And so, you know, one of the things that you could do with Mountain, I mentioned you could do these like complementary display ads that complement your TV ads. You can have a product carousel in those display ads where, you know, the products that people are reviewing on your website are sort of embedded inside the display ad that they see. It'd be interesting if something like that could happen on television as well. If the products that you were looking at on a website were featured, a specific product that a user saw on your website was then shown on TV, tailored to their browsing behavior. That would be very interesting if someone did that. But
That sounds like a hint.
yeah. I'm out of time. Thanks so much, folks. I really appreciate it. Thank you.
Ollie, thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you.
Amazing. Thanks, everybody, for coming and sticking with us to the end of the day.